Hello and welcome to Adventures in Venueland, an EAMC podcast. This is your all-access pass to go backstage and behind the scenes with some of the brightest minds that cross the scope of the live entertainment industry. I'm Dave Rettelberger.
And I'm Paul Hooper. We'll introduce you to some of our favorite people as we dive deep into the world of live touring shows and the venues that host them.
Our adventure today takes us out to the West Coast, where we're going to visit with Cara Vanderhook. You might know the name, but she's the VP of Marketing and Communications with Crypto.com Arena, which you may know formerly as the Staples Center, Microsoft Theater, and LA Live. Cara, how you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me, guys. Super excited.
Thanks for making the time today. First, let's, everybody knows the names, right? They've heard, Crypto.com, Microsoft Theater, LA Live, kind of tossed around before, maybe at conferences or, on the podcast even, but three very different venues. Walk us through those three spots.
Sure. Crypto.com, like you said, formerly Staples Center for 23 years. And now we're embarking on into our 24th season and almost a year into the official name change to Crypto.com Arena. Is a 20,000 seat arena, home to the Los Angeles Lakers, Kings, Clippers, and Sparks. We also do between 35 to 45 concerts a year, family shows, WWE, all that good stuff. So that's really kind of the anchor. And that was the first thing that opened in downtown as part of AEG's sort of expansion and sort of takeover and revitalization of downtown Los Angeles. So that opened in October of 99. And then fast forward about 8 years later, LA Live and Microsoft, which was actually Nokia Theater when it opened, were the kind of the opening parts of LA Live and the entertainment district, and opening and broadening kind of, again, the revitalization and bringing it to life and even more, not just around the games and concerts that were happening at Staples Center, but this theater. The theater is 7,100 seats. It does about 120 concerts a year, family shows, special events, corporates, but a large part of what they do and why it's a unique venue is the largest stage in California. It's gigantic, which in some ways for concerts is intimidating. So we have gone through some upgrades and renovations to sort of make the space feel a lot more intimate, but ultimately it's super versatile because we do a ton of award shows. So it's home to the Primetime Emmys, American Music Awards, BET Awards. We'll actually have the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame inductions coming up on November 5th. This will be the second time we've hosted that. So it has the ability to host a lot of huge, bigger events that require, 2-week load-ins and rehearsals and all that stuff, which is awesome because it brings a ton of eyeballs and focus to the campus and to the theater. And then LA Live is a conglomerate of restaurants, hotels, Ritz-Carlton, JW Marriott at LA Live, variety of restaurants, a Lucky Strike bowling alley, the 22-seat club, the Novo. So when the whole district was sort of created, the idea was that artists would play the club and then they would go to the theater and then they would play the arena, right? Like 20 years ago, Now you put out one single and you're playing an arena. So it kind of
you don't put out the single. They just hear it on TikTok these days.
You're on TikTok and you're boxing in an arena, right? So it's kind of that sort of philosophy or strategy. I don't want to say it got thrown out the window because I also think now it's reverse where some bigger artists are like, I want to play a smaller room or do something a lot smaller. We also have the Grammy Museum, which is an incredible space, and artists, songwriters of any and every genre come through there. They actually have a 200-seat Clive Davis Theater. They do one of the coolest events. It's probably one of my favorite things on the campus, and they'll highlight different artists. So you're in a room with 200 people. I've seen Zach Brown, Keith Urban, the Dixie Chicks. I'm a country fan if you didn't catch that. But I've seen a lot of different artists that I also wouldn't have ever had the opportunity to be in the same room with 200 people. So they do a Q&A with a curator, and then they play 5 or 6 songs, sort of usually acoustically or with a really small band. So the cool part about this campus is there's definitely something for everyone. And, our theater, a big stake of what the theater does is Latin shows. So when Universal Amphitheater closed up in kind of the Burbank area of LA when the theater opened, we're able to sort of take on a lot of that business. So we have a huge calendar of Latin shows that play our theater, which is really cool. So when I started working in this business, I did not know the variety of different music that came across all different genres. And I have definitely brought in my musical taste and have a much bigger appreciation for a variety of music since starting. So I feel grateful for all of that as well.
I love that you hit on the relationship they have to each other, because I don't have any statistics on this, but I feel like LA Live was maybe the origin of all these districts that we're seeing now, literally all over the states, all over the world. It seems like everyone is stacking a theater next to an arena, doing some sort of party flex space on the outside. And it's a great idea. You're able to do, watch parties out in the area if you've got a massive playoff game, but you also have just all this flexibility for concerts and everything. But I do feel like, the first one I ever knew of or heard of is LA Live and that whole area. And it did give you all, with some of the unique things like you mentioned with the big stage, I think it gave you this really cool advantage that you could take on these massive events. Like I went to X Games out there, and that big stage you mentioned, they put a freaking half pipe on the stage. Like I would have never thought of presenting like a sport in a theater like that. Like it's just like not something that ever would have gone through my mind. But when you have a massive stage like that, you could build a half pipe and have people on there with skateboards and BMX, and there's plenty of space to do that. But like I think it's really something that's very unique and sort of this origin of what is now being replicated in markets all over.
Yeah. And I think, when I first started here, it was kind of actually the first iteration of it was really the O2 in London. Like they kind of had that space there, and it needed a lot of kind of some TLC, or just like, how can we make this better? And obviously it's like, probably I'm partial to who I think the best arena is, but most popular as far as like overseas, the O2 is just like second to none as far as, the number of shows that they get, hospitality, everything about that complex is really incredible, because it kind of is LA Live under a big top, sort of. If you're familiar with that space, it has a huge tent over it and it's super iconic on the Thames River there. So in theory, like, because we don't get any rain here, we don't need a tent over LA Live. So we are really fortunate to not need that. I wish we had more rain. But again, to your point, Paul, that it really was, as far as in the States or probably North America, it was like the start of that, right? Because then it was replicated in Kansas City. And then now you kind of see it everywhere, because it makes sense. People want to gather. And I think the exciting part, like coming out of COVID, is like people want to gather even more than ever, and we're also adjacent to the LA Convention Center. So we get a ton of conventions. We have an event deck behind our theater. We have a huge plaza, Xbox Plaza, in front of the theater. So in theory, these events can come in and have like an entire campus they could take it over. So we've done that with like Adobe. LinkedIn's coming in a month and doing a huge takeover, and they'll do stuff inside the theater. They'll have the hotel as their, main hotel, and they'll be at the convention center. They fill our restaurants. They do private events. So those are the weekends that when you're here, like the energy is incredibly high. And then usually sometimes there'll be a game mixed in or a concert. And it's just really incredible what can like happen on this campus from one day to the next. Like it's clockwork, and it is a well-oiled machine, but I'm always amazed when stuff gets thrown at us and like we're able to pull it off in either a short amount of time, or even with a ton of planning when it's the first time. For example, with the Emmys that were here a few weeks ago, we did actually have some pretty big storms for us here. Wind, where like, again, there's tents and like temporary structures and stuff that are up. And like, we had to like completely shut down stuff for almost 36 hours, which again, in event world is a long time when you're trying to load in. So, so you kind of roll with it. And again, being outside, it's always a little tricky, but I always pray for the AMAs, because I feel like every other year there'll be some, like, it'll be the most rain that we get for an entire year. I've been on a red carpet that you literally needed an oar to like ride down because it was flooding so bad. So, it's always the weekend before Thanksgiving. So it's a little dicey. It can be 80 or it could be 60 and dumping rain. So I think with that, it's just, it is kind of the blueprint for what is happening across the country and across the industry. And I think it's really cool to be a part of. But again, you're also learning and going through the growing pains and coming out of COVID, like, restaurants. Like I've took over LA Live about a year ago. And as much as I know about the restaurants and they're a crucial part of the business here, I've really gotten to know a lot more about what they need from us and what we can do as the buildings to, make sure they have enough staff working, make sure they know, numbers of different things and door times and what time the show is going to get out. Cause then they can properly, service our fans.
Yeah, sure. That's a big thing.
Even though we don't manage those places, we want someone from the moment they get there, can't wait to see you email, to the time they leave, for it to feel like they got every bit of information they needed and that it was as simple and enjoyable as possible. And it was they spent all this money that hopefully they're not like, dang, where do I park? Oh, I didn't know I couldn't bring this size bag in. Oh, your restaurants have a long line. They don't take reservations. And it's like, no, we try to put it on a silver platter for you and hope you enjoy it from beginning to end. So it's been really cool to sort of be a part of that, from now adding the restaurant side of it to it is really, really cool. And we have some really great partners, and Kevin Johnson, who used to play in the NBA, he actually just opened a restaurant called Fixin's. It's a Southern soul food place, and it's incredible. Number one, the food's amazing. Good. The service is amazing, and they are packed all the time. And it's my new fave. A little partial, but him and his crew have done an amazing job bringing that. I mean, on the weekend, whether we have an event or not, it's busy. So I always think that's a huge success too. Obviously they thrive on the event calendar, but it's pretty awesome to see some of these restaurants really doing well on a dark night or a dark day when there isn't a conference or something going on. So it's really opened my eyes. When I started working, I worked in restaurants, so it's kind of a full circle moment. But yeah, I think it's really cool to sort of intertwine all of them and try to bridge the gap between our teams and our promoters. Kane Brown did an after party at Lucky Strike one night. So it was really cool that his management wanted to just keep the crew, go over, rented out a room, did a post show with their crew. So again, I think it is the blueprint and it continues to be. And I think that there's still, coming out of COVID, there's just some challenges trying to, we have a couple open spots that we're just trying to pitch some unique ideas to different restaurants. Cause unfortunately that was just a part of COVID. Some of those folks didn't make it through, and sad to see that. But I think that we're excited to see who comes in here next.
It does seem like the experience sometimes is now, I don't want to say trumps the event, but it's almost as important, if not more important. And I think that's partly why that blueprint's being replicated, because it's not just about going to a Lakers game. It's about getting dinner beforehand. It's about going to the bar after. It's about the whole thing. And I think that's why all these markets are like, we can't just have an arena, have people show up and then leave and drive back home. I mean, they'll do that, but it's like, how do you really enhance that experience? Because you're frankly competing with other markets that are doing that. So it's like, I can go to this arena and this is all I get, or I can go to this one and I get dinner and I get the whole experience and I get, it's all about the experience now.
100%. And we joke about it, but not only do we market the show and get it up from, it's like coming up with something unique to announce the show, and then get the tickets on sale. And then if it doesn't quite get there, what else can we do in between that time? And then we start working on, okay, what are we going to do to trick out the backstage to welcome the artists and make everyone feel comfortable? And then what are we going to do outside to make the fans feel comfortable?
Yeah,
so not comfortable.
Activations in the lobby.
It's moment, right? Instagrammable moment. So those things take a lot. They take a lot of time to plan. They take a lot of time to create. They obviously require a budget. And then they just require logistics and execution from a lot of different departments. And, we had Morgan Wallen this past weekend, and nod of the cap to the Bridgestone, who we borrowed an idea from, who we often do. We all borrow, right? But they had a thing with sand in your boots is one of his songs. And so we had built a sandbox and did all this stuff. So, but it was here Saturday morning, putting that all together, making sure it looked good, checking it Sunday morning, because it was 2 nights. And putting security on it to make sure someone didn't make more of a mess of it, all because you want people to take a picture and post it on Instagram. Right. And so, and we're trying to add some stuff too. Right now we're in the process of we're getting all of our final signage installed with the name change. So we're just trying to and we have construction going on. So we've just tried to sort of smoke and mirror some of that stuff too. Here, take a really cool picture here with crypto.com looking really fun with this backdrop, or balloons with Michael Bublé, and all these sort of things that people aren't necessarily taking a picture in front of a temporary sign, or maybe they are and they don't look completely temporary. We've done a pretty decent job, but I think that we are excited for the new stuff to come in, but at the same time, and we'll still continue to do the fan engagement stuff, but ultimately it's, coming up with strategies to get people to, tag us, promote us, use a hashtag. Like, it only helps all of our partners and sponsors, and ultimately it's just a really good fan experience that doesn't cost them anything. It's just an extra thing for them.
You talked about, kind of, the last pieces of signage come in. It's hard to believe it's been about a year, right? Since everybody said, I'm always calling it Staples Center, right? So talk to us about this past year and kind of how the community is shifting. Are they adopting Crypto.com? What are they calling it? What's the vibe?
Obviously I grew up here as well. So for me, for 23 years, it was Staples Center. And really right before the pandemic, we were in the midst of a 20-year anniversary. So, AEG had bought the naming rights back several years before. I think it was like 17 or 18. So it wasn't like within the industry, I don't know that it was 100% a secret that we were looking for a new naming rights partner. But then the pandemic hit. And so obviously a lot of that went on pause and people weren't, signing up for large naming right deals in the middle of that. So what was pretty crazy is that happened really fast. Our global partnerships team is amazing and they hustle and they're always trying to find, the unique partner, the partner that really makes a lot of sense for us as a company and for, whether it's the market or not, they're able to sell. The cool part or the unique part about our global partnerships is that they can sell across multiple entities, right? So it's not just everything at LA Live. Like we have stuff over, London, Berlin, Coachella, Stagecoach, the touring side. So there's a lot of inventory for them to, they have a Rolodex of a lot of things to work with partners on. So when they were able to connect with Crypto.com, it made a lot of sense. And personally, I had to do a lot of research because I wasn't, I think we had about, when it finally got to me and it was time to be like, all right, this is happening. I want to say it was like 3 weeks before the announcement.
Oh.
So, yeah. So, I want to say it was November 17th we made the announcement, which got leaked about 2 hours before we were about to put it on the wire.
Of course.
I felt pretty good about that. I thought it probably would have happened sooner, to be honest. Obviously, there's so much sentimental value to Staples Center, and I don't think even people ever put it together that it's Staple, like that it was Staples, the office supply, because when the building opened in 99, like the Lakers won 3 championships. There was a Democratic National Convention. Like Staples made their money in like the first 3 years of just eyeballs and like the amount of attention that it brought, right? Like It was an incredible deal on their part, right?
And they forgot that was a naming rights partner.
Correct. And occasionally, which doesn't happen so much anymore now, but what was always funny to me is you'd be like walking out to lunch and someone would be out front like looking at their phone. There is a Staples about 2 blocks down Figueroa, an actual Staples office supply store.
People are coming in the lobby asking the ticket sellers for
totally looking for Arima paper or making a copy. But yeah, so that's always one of my funny favorite things is people who have like literally no clue. But with that said, I think, Crypto.com is very forward thinking. Obviously, they're, if you're watching anything, Super Bowl or any major thing, or if you go to Vegas, like it's their advertising and their splash into the world is pretty incredible. They're very they think outside the box. And with Staples, there wasn't necessarily a massive relationship with them and getting approvals and really getting their insight, where Crypto.com came in and just really sort of challenged everyone in a positive way, like really pushed the envelope. Like, what else can we do? How can we do this? What can we do? And it also it's again, you're coming out of COVID and supply chain, all that sort of stuff was and we have to turn this around by Christmas Day. So we really had 45 days to change the court, get anything, pretty much remove Staples from anything. Uniforms, court logos, scoreboard, the signage, sure, was watching the letters come down off the thing, kind of bittersweet and sad. Sure. But at the same time, we're excited and it should be hopefully here in the next couple weeks, watching the new stuff come in. Right. And it's just been a process. Yeah, it's gonna be a year, but again, all these things normally take that kind of time when permits but then getting the goods and that kind of stuff. It's just been it's like everything else, a little bit more challenging and a little bit longer. So, all in all, it was a pretty incredible accomplishment to like finally on Christmas Day see it all happen and watch the court go in on, I think we did it on the 23rd. We got shirts for all the crew and tried to really make it. And of course, there was a million memes and a lot of negative comments. But now I think the joke name is the Crypt, which I don't refer to it in that, just like I never call it. I always call it Staples Center. And then we always never put a "the" in front of it. So it was Staples Center because the fear was always that people were going to refer to it as the Staples, which sounds funny. But if you think about it, like now they're calling it the Crypt. So it's kind of, Bob Lefitz was here the other night at Morgan Wallen, and he referred to it in his write-up as the Crypt a couple times. But I think people get it. I mean, the weird part of it from a marketing side is the .com. That really, from
Right. Yeah. So how's everybody reacting to that are they using that publicly or in your show spots, that kind of stuff?
Oh yeah. And I mean, even with them, like it was like, oh, well, no, our logo has to be in every, show artwork. And it was like, well, can we show you how this actually works? Just want to give you like even this morning we announced Muse and their artwork. It's like, once we showed them 40 examples of past artwork of where sometimes they'll use the actual logo, but then sometimes they try to make it look like it's part of the artwork. And again, when I'm talking about we needed a lot of education from them and they needed a lot of education from us.
Sure.
Positively, just jumping into a different market space. So it was one of those moments where I was like, this is like the most I've learned about something in like a really long time. Like even though like I walked in the office and I was like, does anyone know anything about cryptocurrency? And one of our graphic designers who was relatively new and is very young, and he was like, gave me like a 30-minute tutorial. And I was like, best 30 minutes ever. Now I actually understand what I'm talking about, So it was, and I downloaded the app and I started playing around and understanding like how it all works and stuff. So it was one of those moments in your career where you're like, all right, like what's the next big thing I'm totally going to learn? And that was it, like learning about that whole industry, number one. And then being part of such a massive name change. I had been a part of one at the theater, which was pretty big, but it was also, when it went from Nokia to Microsoft, and Microsoft bought Nokia. So it was still part of kind of like the same family.
Same
so
group,
it was, yeah. So it was a little bit different. Still logistically punch listing all the stuff and changing it. Well, every now and then you'll still find something. And it's like, now it's like an Easter egg hunt, right? Like when you still find something with Staples, you're like, okay, where is it? Like
you just have a pocket full of stickers that say crypto.com. You just slap them around on different things that are
I found something on a digital thing the other day. I was like, ooh, we need to change this. Like, and I'm like, again, almost a year, like again, things that you just innately like don't think about off the top of the bat. Like there is kind of a playbook for the basic checklist, but at the end of the day, like you'll still find stuff. There's just no way after 23 years, like it's going to happen. So
after that run, I know you guys, obviously the building starts to age a little bit. You guys have done a great job keeping it up over the years, but you're in the middle of a big renovation right now.
Yeah. I think that's one of the most amazing things about, AEG is that Mr. Anschutz continually, puts in that financial and that capital investment every year. So you would walk in here and not ever think that it's 23 or 4 years old, even before the renovation. Sure, there's some like design elements where you're like, hey, that looks like it's from the 90s, early 2000s, but it's not worn and torn with holes. And
right.
It's not a dump, right? It just is more of an aesthetic thing that has changed over time. So that was about to be announced in March of 2020, obviously got put on hold. The unique part of this building is that we're the only arena in North America with 4 professional sports teams. And we haven't closed. We haven't closed one day to do all of this. It's going to be in 3 phases. So the second all of our teams were eliminated in April/May from the playoffs, which again, you never really know, or hopefully we always hope it's June. And we're spoiled with having lots of June activity here since the building opened. But so it's a weird thing, right? Planning construction with actually not having a start date, a firm start date. So yes, pretty much, I think it was like about a week after we were, knew we were done. We have his name's Armand Dembekjan. He's kind of running a lot of the stuff from the building side. And we have our whole AEG real estate with Kevin Rieger and obviously our president, Lee Zeidman. They kind of put together the schedule, and PCL is the contractor who was the original contractor for the building. And then we also have 2 of the same architects from the a building that are no longer working together, but came back together to sort of do this project. Cool. It's kind of a cool thing.
Yeah.
And so it's pretty incredible what they've pulled off since May. And a lot of it will be unveiled this weekend at our first preseason game. So we have a bar and grill on our main level that got Impact Bar and Grill that got completely redone that I actually just got a peek of this morning and looks really, really nice. It'll kind of be a flex space for some teams. It'll be a season ticket holder space. Other concerts, it'll just be open as a bar for fans to grab food and drinks. And then we redid our chairman's room, which is on the event level. And that's really kind of like a VIP industry hang for concerts. And, somewhere where we host promoters, artist guests, things like that. And then for games, it's for the ice side and courtside seat holders. So the teams sort of allocate those passes and access on their side. And then in our bowl area, from a fan standpoint, that I think they'll see the biggest change on this phase is we worked with Daktronics, and we have a 3-level ring, LED sort of ring all the way around on all 3 levels that go below each suite. It looks really awesome. They just got finished yesterday, and I've been watching the testing. And then 2 on the upper walls where the Lakers banners and retired jerseys are 2. We're calling them hustle boards, but they can be used for game stats, sponsorship, anything. I mean, they're really multi-use. So, but all those screens and along with the center hung scoreboard will all sort of tie in together. So that digital experience and the LEDs in there are pretty impressive, and they look amazing. And then our suite levels, everything from the door of the suite out got upgraded, and new doors, new carpets, total new aesthetic and decor, upgraded bathrooms, totally gutted and redone. Looks pretty nice. I'm installing some photos today. So we're down to the final punch list of phase 1. And then next summer is phase 2. And that'll, we have like our City View Terrace. We have some main concourse level suites that are going in. And then in 24, the Clippers will actually depart our venue and are opening their own arena in Inglewood. So that at that point, that's where our downstairs locker room area will totally get redone. The Kings and Lakers locker room, they're adding a tunnel club, which is where fans could then see players come in and out as they go to the court or the ice. So it's phased out pretty well. And then again, we just haven't closed, which is pretty crazy. So we even, squeezed in several Sparks games during the summer, concerts, never really stopped. So this building's always 24/7, but it has legitimately been 24/7 since May.
How many locker rooms do you all have? I know sometimes, like when you host NCAA events, you have to have a certain threshold, and I don't know if you all use any of the pro team ones. Like, do you all have a lot of locker rooms?
We have the Lakers, Clippers, and Kings and Sparks all have their own. And then the Sparks is a little bit of a flex space. And then there's a visitors NHL and a visitors NBA. And then we have additional locker rooms or dressing rooms across from there. So we have 6 dressing rooms on one side, 1. I'm trying to count now. I think 5 locker,
that's a good problem to have.
5 locker rooms on the right side, or on the one across.
Oh my gosh.
It's a very large, and we don't, typically for concerts, like the Lakers, Clippers, and Kings are never touched. They're just, one, because usually they're in and out and there's no way. If someone really wants one, or they they have an affinity or whatever, they usually have to come in and like carpet it, pipe and drape, totally pay for a cleaning fee, like should anything happen, kind of thing. So it's like not really worth it. Yeah. So, and now again, their buses are so nice and stuff. I'm not sure why anyone would even leave a bus, but, or a lot of them live here, right? So they'll just go to their houses here and then just like come to drive to the show. True. So it's usually, it's funny, like on a Grammy night, like a lot of them get used and they're like broken up into like quadrants. So like, it's always funny to be like, ooh, who's in there that like, they're like someone's on the other side of that curtain, right? That's like literally like cutting force. And like even though it seems like a lot of locker rooms and dressing rooms, it's not. And even on a show night of Grammys too, sometimes we'll use, so Secret, again, kind of making fun of I always joke that we built it because the weather's so awful. There's an underground tunnel that connects Microsoft Theater and Crypto.com Arena. So you can use that. You can use those dressing rooms too if you were really in a pinch. If there's not a conflicting event, but the Grammys do a pre-telecast at the theater and then they move it over here for the main show. But yeah, that's a kind of a fun little thing, and it's kind of random, like, and it needs some. We were before COVID, we were wanting to come up with a really cool concept from a marketing side for that tunnel, because now it just looks like an underground tunnel, not really like finished off, but it has been used for like movies and different like commercials and stuff, because it's a very unique space and people like it. But it was done that way because originally, like, the theater doesn't have like a full kitchen. The staff will check in here. Like, it was all the locker rooms were here. So from a space and like efficiency standpoint, it just made a lot of sense to have everything emanate out of the arena, and then people could just cross over and do it that way and not have to like re-enter security and stuff like that. So some of that's changed, but it still is a nice feature to have, especially when you're working a night and we have, 2 shows going on at the same time. It's pretty nice.
I was gonna say, easy way to get between them, especially if there's a lot of people like out in the lobby and the plaza. Totally. You're like, you don't want to cut through all that. Instead, you just take the secret tunnel.
Exactly.
So obviously, with everything going on just at your place, there's a lot going on, but there's so much competition in the market for the entertainment dollar. What is that challenge like for you guys?
I think a lot of people think like, you get every show and you sell out every show. And that's like, that's not, that's the goal, right? Like, we always want that. But we scratch and claw for pretty much everything that we get. Our booking team's amazing. All my entire marketing team's amazing. Like, we have an awesome graphic design department that's really helped us elevate. We're pitching, we are hustling, we are going after agents. We're utilizing our assets with, the Lakers, Clippers, Kings, and, inviting people out to games and wining and dining, and really trying to show off all the assets that we have that are unique, right? Obviously there's just a ton of venues in this market, and it's not just like Los Angeles, like it's, Anaheim, even as far as San Diego. And then you've got, I don't ever necessarily think like the Bowl is a competition to anyone, because it's an iconic outdoor place. You have the Bowl, you have the Greek, and then you have another arena coming online in 2024. And now the stadium's being, a huge play with a lot of these artists. Like, they're putting on these like almost mini festivals. Like, I went to Kenny Chesney at SoFi, and it was like almost like a mini festival. There were 4 really legitimate artists. It was all started at 5:00 and went till super late. And SoFi is a gorgeous building. And so I think like with all of those things, like, it's just, one part of like why we're doing some of the renovations, but also like, you want to stay relevant. You want to, you want to be top of mind. So we're just constantly, coming up with unique ideas. So like, when it's, when Kendrick Lamar, we announced 4 shows, but he had shows at other places in the market. And Marina Paul, who's our senior director of marketing, team came up with a really cool idea to kind of he's like Kendrick's really into bikes, like cruisers, beach cruisers. So we made this whole video, and they went all over town and like shot this video, and it ended here. Like, the Lakers shared it and liked it, and we just got like a ton of positive feedback. And so, like I kind of said earlier, like, you don't just like get the artwork and get a link and put a show on sale anymore. It's a whole thing, which is super fun and exciting, but it's also like you're constantly trying to like achieve yourself from the last one that you did. We did a call yesterday for Muse, and with Michelle Bernstein, and we're just trying to come up with creative things, and they're playing Anaheim, San Diego, and Vegas. So it's like, okay, all within the same week. Like, all right, what can we do to like just kind of separate ourselves or do something cool? Like, and I hate to be like, let's do something that goes viral. Like, you're never trying to do something that goes viral. You're just trying to do something that catches people's attention. And for better or for worse, like I said, sometimes I'm always like, man, that was really awesome, but like, now we're going to have to do that like every time. But how do we change it? How do we do it different,
right? Exactly. You got to be careful raising the bar too high, because then you're like, oh shit, now the bar is that high.
and honestly, like I've we did take on a couple folks from our LA Live team who have been with us for a long time, Sean Otricole and Eric Ogensky, and they are have been with LA Live, but hadn't done the venue side, and they've just brought a different look to us. And, and Evan Gold has been with me for a long time, and he's our digital senior manager, and he oversees all the social. So it's just like, it's been nice to have like new blood come in, and sort of like, we've all kind of had, like, we've gotten a punch of fresh air, right? Or a different perspective. And then I have a new comms manager, Gabby Mungaro, who's almost been a year, but again, came from a different side, from like more of the tourism side. So we all just sort of, get in rooms all the time and use a whiteboard and try to get creative and try to set that bar higher every single time. But yeah, I mean, I know I kind of veered off from your question, Dave, but the competition's it's not just the venues that we're trying to directly compete against business. Like there are 2 baseball teams, there's 2 pro football teams, there's 2 big college teams. We have the beach, like you can surf and ski in the same day. You can go to the mountains in the winter. Like there are a million things for your dollar to go, the gamut. This weekend there are shows everywhere. I feel like, and sure there's a game or I think Bad Bunny's at SoFi, but there's, the Kings kick off their preseason this weekend at home. There's a Ohana festival down in Dana Point for 3 days with like Eddie Vedder. There's a huge air show down in Orange County that's free technically. So people just go to the beach and for 3 days and watch airplanes but it's free, so like there's constantly like that, you're really trying to stand out amongst all these events and get people's dollars, and the ticket prices are going up because people are trying to make some money back. Like everyone's trying to make money back, and cost of staff and cost of goods are also going up. So it's just, it's been I think it will always be a challenge, but I think it sort of gives you that drive and that push to, separate ourselves. And I think that's my team is very competitive and I love it. And so we'll keep trying to raise the bar.
Cara, let's talk about you for just a minute. You and I have something in common, which is that very lucrative communications degree.
Yeah. It's very, very lucrative.
California State University, right? And I know that you kind of got your start there kind of with some internships.
Yeah. When I went to school, I played softball in high school, or most of my life, and then in high school, and went on a senior trip. And most of our family vacations revolved around sports, baseball, usually either with my dad or my brother, softball with me. And so when I went on my senior trip, my parents let me go to Europe at 18 with a bunch of friends. There was a chaperone, but it was a really good deal, and I'm super grateful that and at the time, I'm sure it was still a lot of money, but I'm super grateful that they let me do that. But I was like, oh my gosh, like this is like a vacation, like this is vacation, And so I came back and I decided that I was done playing sports, was going to go to a JC, and then decided to go to Long Beach State. And so went into Long Beach State and then was like, man, I kind of do miss sports still. And so at the time, I actually played water polo in high school because I had hurt my knee playing softball. So I tried to walk on and play water polo. I didn't make the travel squad. So I was like, nope, I don't want it. If I'm not going to be on the full team, I don't want to be on the team. So then I went way outside of my comfort zone and decided to join a sorority, which was awesome. And so it was, definitely not necessarily probably part of my path, but I knew Long Beach State is a little bit more of a commuter school. So if I didn't join something, I would just not really get a total college experience. So did that during my undergrad, and for communication, and I was like, I don't know what I want to major in. Like, I really like music. I really like the radio stuff. And then I noticed all the athletes were in the communications department classes. So I was like, well, these must be easy. So I guess I'll just go the communications route. And which is still a story I tell when I go back and talk to one of my professors' classes every year. And I actually ended up falling in love with it. I love to write. I love to be behind the scenes. I love working with the media. And I was going to a concert and ended up going up to a radio station and was like, do you have interns? And they were like, no. And I kept calling and I called and I called and I called, and not to be annoying, but enough to be persistent. And they finally offered me an internship. So I worked at the radio station for a couple of years. For a year, probably didn't even get paid, which was fine. I didn't care. I was like waiting tables and bartending and just, hustling and doing all that. And then I was getting ready to graduate and I was like, well, I'm making kind of good money bartending. I can still work these events with the radio station. So I really want to get like a real job or like whatnot. So they have a school. I don't even know if they still have the school paper. They probably do. It's probably online, but the 49er, and I'm looking through it, and they had an ad for sports management marketing master's program. And one of my best friends from college had gone on to start work, like she was a couple years older than me, started working at Long Beach Police Department. And she goes, if you don't get your master's now, you're never going to go back and get it. So my words to you are go do it. If you get in, do it. And I'm still to this day one of my best friends, and actually just became the first female commander in Long Beach Police Department history, which is awesome. My friend Steph. So she, so anyways, but she was the one that was like, go do it. You'll regret it and you'll never go back once you start working. And I totally am so grateful for that, because that did lead me to the internship here at Staples Center. Walked in, and Christy Castillo Butcher, who was my boss for almost 12 to 13 years, hired me because she also went to a Cal State school, which she went to Cal State Fullerton, and was in a sorority. We both kind of had similar backgrounds. And my uncle was the baseball coach at Cal State Fullerton. So in some worlds, my last name sort of helped me in that aspect. But she took a flyer on me, and I'm super grateful to her. And so I ended up working in the event services department, like event management, for probably like 6 months during that season. And then a comms job opened up in our AG comms department. And I worked for Michael Roth, who's our VP of comms for the whole company for AG, for about 5 years, which was amazing. And a really like sort of the, groundwork of where I started, and a lot of what I take with me still today on the comm side. And then when the theater opened in 2007, Lee Zeidman, our president, and Christy were like, hey, like we kind of need someone that's like dedicated to the arena and now this theater, because when the arena opened, the Kings were kind of like the team that did it, right? They were kind of doing the concerts, Globetrotters and WWE, but like, the not hand holding, but the support that those promoters needed was getting higher and higher. And it wasn't something that the King staff could continue to focus on. So they brought me on. And again, I think that was when I look back on it, I was like, man, I really didn't know a lot about marketing at the time. I just kept teaching myself stuff and listening. And
it's the best way though.
Totally. And I walked in like when I worked for Michael, the first day I walked in, like, this is your office. And I look at the door next to me, and it's Luke Robitaille, who's like, Hall of Fame hockey player, who I'm like a huge Kings fan. And he's now the president of the Kings. And I was like, this like cannot be real life. Like, this is insane. But I would go in and like talk to him. And I like was next to our finance. It was like a random mishmash corner of who these people were in these offices. But I would just go in and like talk to those people and pick their brains. And like Ailments, who runs Fan Interactive, and they do a ton of digital stuff now. At the time he was working for us, and one of the smartest people like I've ever had the pleasure of working with. And we hired him eventually for a while, and so I would pick his brain. And so I just tried to like be a sponge at that point. And I think Lee and Christy just also, and Michael, have always had a lot of faith and trust in me, which I appreciate. And I'd come to them with ideas, and a lot of times I think what they also respected is that like sometimes I knew I needed help or I needed training, because it wasn't something that I knew well. Like I knew enough to be dangerous, but I didn't know enough to be the expert. And so I would go find the expert and go to them and be like, can I bring them in to help me, or can I bring them in to help us? For example, Nick Adler was like, he was with the Roxy at the time. Now he's with Golden Voice, and he kind of set the standard for like venue social media at the time. Like Paul Camargo, this was like 2010 probably. And so it was,
like forever ago.
and I brought that whole crew in, and we paid them. But I had to go in and do a proposal and be like, they are going to help us. I promise they're going to help us. We're going to get this money back. Like, we're going to be like best at what we do. And this is going to help kind of like going back to like, how do you separate yourself from the competition? This could be one way we can do it. And they totally were like, all right, we believe in you. Let's do it. And it was huge. I still use some of those tactics now. Obviously, a lot of that's changed over the years, but there's a lot of basics from that time that I still use now. And I think that that's important. Like, you can't, especially when you're doing marketing communications now, it's like such a broad area. Like, all the things that fall under me, there's no way I can be the expert in all those things, but I can take the time to listen to the experts or find the experts, or give my team the opportunity to go to a training with an expert, or bring someone in that can like help us out, because that's what you need. And, we're always going 24/7. So for me, I think that's kind of like, I've just been super blessed to have that. I've also been super blessed to have an amazing family and friends who at first were like, can you still come to things? Like, are you ever going to show up to a birthday party or this or that? Right. And then, right, probably about 2 years before COVID, I really kind of shifted a lot of like making sure I had a better work-life balance. And then during COVID, Paul and I had this in common. We both also sort of got the bug and decided to really put our health first. And so I got a trainer, and I changed my eating habits and totally just like made that a priority. And it just makes your mental health and I think your work productivity just a much better. And look, it goes in waves. Like right now I'm like, okay, I'm starting back up with my trainer this week because I miss him and I need it. And, but I think it makes me a better employee and a better leader when I am in a better headspace to lead
Sure.
and to make decisions. And so, if there's silver linings out of COVID, for me, it was like, one, I got to spend a lot of time with my family, my parents and my brother and my sister-in-law, my niece and nephew, who are near and dear to me. So I am grateful that I got all that time with them that I don't think I ever would have gotten. They live my parents just moved to Vegas, but my brother and sister-in-law were out there. So I was kind of shuttling back and forth from LA to Vegas during COVID. And I'm grateful for that. So I think that I tried to find those silver linings because now it's like, oh man, like look at this calendar and when can I go and how can I get out there and when can I see them? And so that, again, it's about work-life balance, but I also, Hallie that I work for now is amazing. And my whole thing is always family first. My whole team knows that, right? Like I think your family is like your base of everything. So, and Lee's the same way. And so, when things go bad or someone's going through a hard time or, health and family are your two biggest things. So, and we all put in so much time here that I think it's important to make sure your people know that and that you're there to support them and that, like the show will go on even with or without us. As much as we think it's not going to, it will.
Yep.
We just have to adjust. So I'm grateful for that I have that environment to work in and to learn in and to grow in. So I try to keep that, and again, not every day is like perfect sunshine and roses. Like I'm not trying to make it feel that way, but I feel like as I've gotten older, like I'm not so wrapped up in like, like, hey, that email's still going to be here tomorrow morning at 8:00. Like whether I open it, like whether I answer it at 9:00 at night or 8 a.m, like, does it really matter? Like, I don't know if you guys use Microsoft now, but maybe you should send this email at a better time when people are in the work hours. I was like, oh, what is this new little thing that's up there? And I was like, again, obviously we still sometimes try to work after hours, but if it's, if it can wait, like it's not, I just think that you get more out of people in the time that they're here and they're focused than just trying to bombard them 24/7. So
You're not wrong.
Yeah.
So, as you were closing up here today, but also as you're closing in on, can I say 2 decades, getting near that mark, what advice, you've obviously moved up the ladder quite a bit from where you started off with that intern position to where you are today. What advice do you have to that person who's, kind of new in the industry listening now? What's been the secret to your success?
I think the secret is like to be super driven on your own, like that you don't need anyone else to like push you, right? Like I think in this industry, like if you can find some people that push you, great. But I think at the same time, you have to be driven. You have to be, if you want the next step, you got to go get it. No one else is going to hand it to you. Like you're not, oh, I've been here for X number of years. Like, I guess it's time for me to get a promotion. Like you need to be your best advocate, and you're your best advocate by showing off your work and by showing off your dedication. And, I think Christy would probably, probably every year I would go to her and be like, here's what I just did for the last year, and this is why I deserve this. And whether she thought I was crazy or not, it worked. And, and I think it got me to where I'm at. And I've recently done it. I think that there's just, you have to, like, you're your own salesperson. No one else is going to do it for you. Now, look, I've had people that have been amazing advocates, mentors, friends, throughout the business that I've, or I think will always be a part of my life, but still at the end of the day, it is a business. You have to treat it like a business as much as we all spend time together. And it feels like we are a work family. It's a business, and you have to treat it that way. And then you have to, come in and sell yourself by your work, your proof of work and your, everything that you've done. And then, because it does go so fast that you don't even have time to reflect. Sometimes you're like, oh my God, like that was 2 years ago, but no, that was last year. So, I think when you go in and you need to understand like when your budgets are and when things are available. And, I think if you just sort of sit and let somebody else, I don't want to say control, but if you just sit, and I know that's hard for someone that's probably brand new to understand, but I would love it if someone knocks on my door and is like, hey, when's the best time for me to show you why I think I deserve the next step, and like bring me a presentation? I love that. Like, can I always guarantee you that like is going to get you something? No, I can't. I personally can't guarantee you that, but I will be more likely to fight for you when my boss comes to me and is like, all right, like we're putting that stuff together. What do you think about this? What do you think about that? And then it gives me some ammunition and some background for me to, especially when my department's now a department of 9, so it's definitely quite a few people. And they don't all directly report to me, but I do manage the department. So I think it's just my biggest advice when I ever talk to a class is I was like, you are your biggest advocate. I also think, and this is sort of makes me feel like a millennial when I say this. I know I hate that word, but it's true. I went and found a job that I knew I would love, and everyone's not always lucky enough to find that in their life. And for me, I would say if you can find a job that you love 75 to 80% of the time, you've like hit the jackpot. If you love it 100%, you've won the lottery. So I definitely feel like I've hit the jackpot because look, there are still times that it's a job, but I love the people that I've met. I love the opportunity that I've had to grow. I love the incredible experiences that I personally have got to experience. But my favorite part is sharing the experiences that I love with, friends, family, clients, vendors, EAMC folks that we've traveled and done vacations with. Like it's endless. So I'm super grateful to the industry. So I always, like, when I sit in a class or I say something, I'll be like, hey, like, you're wearing a Yankees hat. Like, maybe you want, like, I know that sounds crazy, but maybe they're hiring, or you love to drink Coca-Cola. Like, they have an amazing marketing department. So I usually go and I'm like, New Era, like, you have that hat on, like, they have an office in Irvine. Like, it's so many of these businesses are at your fingertips. Like, so maybe start off your career trying to find something that you actually really like. And then you may find out things like, for me, when it was radio, I was like, I love this, but I kind of see the writing on the wall that terrestrial radio probably is not going to be around for my entire lifetime. And so, but it still gave me the bug of live music. I mean, I always loved music. Both my grandparents were like always had music playing in the houses. So I've always loved music, but like the concert bug got me in like college, and I've just never let it go. And I grew up a diehard Lakers Kings fan. So it was like, for me, this job was like made for me. So I'm very grateful for that.
We are so grateful for you for sharing your adventure with us and your time today. Before we wrap things up, I want to hit you with the Fast Five.
Okay.
It's 5 quick questions, just looking for your instant brief response. First up, what was your very first concert?
Garth Brooks, The Forum, 1994.
That night. How about your favorite concert?
Ooh. Can all my answers be Garth Brooks? No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
I wish we had a whole episode just to talk about your Garth Brooks stories.
I know.
There are a few of those, I know.
Maybe a second one.
I always say it's a weird combo between Garth, Jay-Z, and Adele. They're like a 3-way tie.
How about your favorite vacation?
Maui.
Your guilty pleasure meal. So it's your cheat day. You can eat whatever you want. What's your favorite guilty pleasure meal?
Ooh, In-N-Out Burger.
Oh yeah. Last question for you. What's the theme song for your reality show? So cameras follow you all around. It's the Cara Show. What song plays over the opening credits of your show?
Oh man, that's a good one. You might have to edit this because now I'm gonna have a really long thought process on that.
Take your time.
I feel like I know the song that you always sing karaoke at every place.
Yeah, I am very much known to sing Shoop by Salt and Peppa. That would probably be, because then people would know it was me. It's kind of my brand. For my 40th birthday, that might even be my headshot that I send to Samantha to promote this podcast. But I don't know. Shoop's probably not an appropriate one. Probably I'll stick with the Garth theme and say "Ain't Going Down Till the Sun Comes Up," because I think I'm going nonstop 24/7 and I love it. And
I like that.
It's just kind of the way I roll. Like I enjoy sleep, but I'm not one to sit around very often and just do nothing. So "Ain't Going Down Till the Sun Comes Up." There you go.
There you go. Oh, I know there's a million stories we didn't get to, so but we do appreciate you taking the time with us today, and I really enjoy always chatting with you.
Awesome. Thank you, guys.
And a big thanks to everybody for listening to Adventures in Venueland. Remember, you can subscribe and find more episodes wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. We'd love your 5-star reviews so you can help others find us. Until the next adventure, I'm Dave Rettelberger.
And I'm Paul Hooper. Thanks for listening, everyone. Let's go sneak out of the secret tunnel.
Adventures in Venueland is a side project of the Event and Arena Marketing Conference, a nonprofit organization bringing together people in the field of live entertainment to discuss marketing, publicity, and sales trends. Find out more at eventarenamarketing.com.
Audio editing and mixing by Camille Faulkner.
Design and digital advertising by Megan Ebeck.
Copywriting and publicity by Samantha Marker.
Guest booking and brand strategies by Paul Hooper.
Guest research by Dave Rettelberger.
Marketing strategies by Paul Hooper, Megan Ebeck, and Samantha Marker. Thanks for joining us. Until the next adventure.